This is Dean from the Conley Workshop. In today's video, we're going to be building a musky fishing lure. For this build, we're going to use poplar. I start by taking the template or a blank and I'll trace it onto the board and then take it over to the compound miter saw and cut it up into some more manageable pieces. When I'm working on the bandsaw, I try to cut as close to my pencil line as I can. This will make it a lot easier on the next step when I go to sand it, and it leaves me a lot less material to work with. Once I'm done cutting everything out on the bandsaw, I'll move over to the sanding station. I'm not trying to shape it yet, I'm just trying to smooth down each side so I have a nice consistent surface on every side that I work on. It helps to trace a line down each side, and this will kind of give me a point to sand to. When I go to round off my corners, I do it by hand. I like to do about an even amount of sanding on each side, but having a reference guide there kind of gives me a spot to shoot for when I'm sanding this down. I use a punch to mark the spot where the eye is going to be. I take my template so it's the consistent spot. I just flip it over on each side. This gives me a mark for my drill press. The Forstner bit gives me a nice clean cut and a perfect spot to put each eye decal. I have to drill out some spots in the belly and the tail. This is going to be where I'm going to add weight to get this lure to sink into the water. I want it to have a slow sink when it hits, and by reeling it in, it's going to have a glide motion going back and forth. I also have to drill in spots for the hook hangers and then start sanding to get those rounded edges. This takes a while and ends up going a lot of passes here. This is just a quick shot to show you what's involved, but I usually end up spending a few hours getting them all sanded down. This 2-part epoxy is a 5-minute epoxy. I use it on the screw eyes for the hook hangers as well as on the front of the bait. You have to work quick here because it does set up in just a few minutes. Then gets coated in a sanding sealer and then dry before I move on to the lead pouring. The melting pot here holds the lead. I fill it up, not quite to the brim, but pretty close, and then I'll come back over the top of everything and put in that baking soda and super glue, and that helps seal up the baits. And then I can move on to painting after that. Make sure you wear a mask or in a well-ventilated area for this part, as it is a lot of fumes when you're using this super glue and baking soda. It gives off a chemical reaction that's pretty strong. Finally, we're able to paint using our airbrush and mini air compressor. We're gonna have a couple different styles, from a walleye, kind of perch style, as well as one that's a fire tiger, kind of brighter colors for the muddy water. We get all our paints laid on with the airbrush, use the heat gun in between to dry all our coats, and then if we want to make any scales or designs, I'll look for a mesh bag or anything with a little wire design, clip it on and put that in between my layers of paint. This is one of those most important steps that I sometimes forget about, but if you get that real dark layer around the eye, it really makes that eyeball sticker pop out once we put it in place. We're using a 2-part tabletop epoxy. You have to mix the A and the B together. You have about a 15-20 minute work time here. So I mix it up, brush it onto all the lures, and then I'll come over with a torch and hit it real quick. That'll get any of the bubbles out of the finish and give it that real nice glossy look. Using the bolt cutter makes quick work to snap these screws in half. I can use that remaining nub that's sticking out as a fastening point for the tails. The tails and the eyeballs are available at the Muskie shop. I use those, they're pre-made, and it makes it real easy to swap out, especially if you're out on the boat and you do get a bite and one of the tails comes off. You can swap it or use a different color and change up your bait real quick. Split ring pliers make it real easy to slide on these split rings and treble hooks. I've actually been using fish tank air tubing. You can cut those in little sections and put those on as hook protectors as well. With the hooks on, there's only one thing left to do. That's take it down to the water and see how it glides. We tried a few different paint styles and one longer body style. It's time to go test the action. Thanks for watching today.